Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the entire United States. Good morning to the entire world. Receiving our signals via the magic of el Internet. That magical thing created by whom? We, the people, not they, the billionaires. Let's remember that. We, the people, we have to turn this entire thing around, folks, and we will. With you in charge, we will. But before we go any further, let's pass it on to the sole genius in the studio this morning, El Señor Howard Reynolds.
Well, that would be a genii, since there's only one of us. The other genius is on the mend. He's feeling better. He's still testing positive for COVID, but that's going to take a while to get out of your system. And I want to thank Harry and Brian and everybody who has given Jack good wishes, because, we miss Jack, mainly because I have to do more work. That's not entirely true. I love Jack. You know that. Jack's a good man. Couldn't run this place without him. I tell him that all the time, and he just goes, "Oh, shucks, just shut up, man," because he's not used to taking compliments. So
he's our great guy, man. He's our great guy, and we miss him. I told him yesterday, I said, man, know that you're missed, but you got to be better, but know that you're missed.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Well, Egberto, it looks like Mike Johnson is floating the idea of getting rid of the U.S. district courts, where they keep hanging up on Trump. So that's an idea of like, oh, well, if we can't get our illegal legislation through, well, why don't we just get rid of the courts? Why don't we get rid of the president? That would be easier.
I want to see him try. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
We're already close to revolution anyway. I mean, people are gathering in the streets. They're carrying signs. They're screaming to high heavens. And you know what? I don't see it covered anywhere on ABC 13 or any of the local stations. I don't see it covered. So I guess the revolution will not be televised.
You remember that? Exactly, right? Exactly. Mm-hmm. The revolution will not be televised. Look, something big, and something as big is happening. Not very well advertised. Hey, I like that. Did you do that?
What's that?
I just heard da-da-da-da. Oh,
no.
Maybe it was just on my side. Okay. But anyway, something big happened yesterday, and a lot of folks aren't talking about it. But a Democrat won a state Senate seat in Pennsylvania in a district Donald Trump won by 15 points. And he won that district by, I think, 20 points. His name is, I believe, Chuck. His name is Dan Gugner. He won a special election in Western Pennsylvania on Tuesday, keeping majority control of the state house in his party's hands. He beat Republican Chuck Davis in a district in the Mon Valley region southeast of Pittsburgh, winning a seat that became vacant in January with the death of Democratic Senator Representative Matthew Gergel. Again, that seat, imagine, that district was a plus 15 for Trump this last time. So,
well, I'm hoping for a blue wave coming up here. We've got some special elections going on down in Florida, Ohio, and several other places. So come on, big old blue wave. Let's wash this garbage out of our Washington districts. Let's wash the garbage out.
It's like what they talk about, the swamp, right? When you get these hurricanes and you have a stagnant swamp that's built up a lot of crud over the years, and then the hurricane comes and dump billions of gallons of water, clean it all out, and life begins again. That's where we need to be. Anyway, so what's up? What is your rant, my brother? What is your rant this morning?
I just wanted to put that out there that Mike Johnson is floating the idea of getting rid of the district courts. The government has gotten rid of courts before, but they're basically just minor courts. They weren't anything like getting rid of the whole district courts, and that's just a bad idea. Yep. Mike Johnson, come on, man. What is wrong with you? That's all I got to say.
Yeah, he's got to learn rather quickly that you don't mess with these sorts of things. But again, sometimes you have to learn by the sword. So what can I say? Anyway, folks, we are going to have a great show for you today. The title of the show is, if I can ever reach it, is Social Security Head Will Make DOGE Chaps Worse. Canadian Woman versus ICE. And 2016 versus 2024 Hegseth. And let me see. I think I'm going to start with that little short one. 2016 Hegseth versus 2024 Hegseth. I want to play you something. It's real short. I want to play it to you, and then let's take it on the other side. You know, Pete Hegseth, he has a big mouth. He's always telling people, like, if you do this, you need to pay. Well, you know what? In setting things up this morning, what I did is I didn't throw it onto the right channels. So now I'm fixing that problem as we speak, and I will throw it right onto the channel again, and we'll do it una vez más. You know, Pete Hegseth, he has a big mouth. He's always telling people, like, if you do this, you need to pay the price. If you do this, you need to pay the price. You know, with Hillary Clinton, he really got on her case. Well, now it's him on the hot seat. Hot seat. So I want you to listen to what he thinks. Pete, how would Pete Hegseth of 2016 deal with Pete Hegseth of 2024? Well, you know what? Let's see how he'll do. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Any security professional, military, government, or otherwise, would be fired on the spot for this type of conduct and criminally prosecuted for being so reckless with this kind of information. Even one hiccup causes a problem. Any security professional, military, government, or otherwise, would be fired on the spot for this type of conduct and criminally prosecuted for being so reckless with this kind of information. Even one hiccup causes a problem.
All right. Pete Hegseth of 2016. Meet Pete Hegseth of 2024. Do your job. Fire Pete Hegseth. Come on, Pete Hegseth of 2016. Fire Pete Hegseth of 2024. That is what we need to do. That is what we need to do, right? How do you do? Do you realize that one of the participants of that meeting, the term talking about an attack in the Middle East, that was actually one of the listeners. They were in Russia. Think about that, folks. I want you to think about what would happen if that occurred under Biden and General Austin did something like what Pete Hegseth did. Have a discussion on a commercial app called Signal and discuss, not only did they discuss this attack, but they also discussed something more profound. How much they pretty much hated Europe, that Europe was what did they call them? A freeloader, that we also understand that the vice president really doesn't necessarily agree with Trump on this particular attack. All of this we heard today. So anyhow, it's going to be quite an interesting scenario how this works out. But if nothing happens here, beware. Absolutely beware.
Now, before I also get into the Social Security portion of this discussion, I want to show you, or both show you and have you listen to this particular thing. A Canadian woman who was trying to get her visa updated, right? Suddenly was thrown into the Grigs. Well, actually thrown into jail. And she has an idea why that is the case. But I find it amazing that we don't have more in the media, not only talking about this more ad nauseum, but also making it clear that this is just a business proposition. This immigration thing that we're getting all the people on the right riled up about is just about good old money. Good morning, Joanne from Los Angeles, California. Good morning. How are you doing this morning? Here's a piece.
If you want to understand what's happening with immigration, remember, many times over, I've spoken about the whole deal with immigration. America needs people. America doesn't only need people to build homes, to cosechar lo que está en la finca, meaning to go ahead and cultivate the land, meaning pick our fruits. We also need labor. We need a lot of folks in America. And America just does not have enough workers to fit the particular skills that are needed out there. And that's why we have been a magnet for immigration, and it works. Even the illegal portion of our immigration system, believe it or not, works. The reason why your Social Security has been solvent longer than it should is because there are billions going in there from undocumented workers who will never, ever collect on it. The reason why we pay the prices we pay for homes is because people that are building these homes, good skills, are building them at an affordable rate, even as they prosper and send a lot of their monies home. The reason we pay a small amount for the vegetables that we eat, for all these things, is because, again, we have good laborers that know how to do the job efficiently. Now, I do believe we should be paying them a hell of a lot more. The farmers in the field or the people that are harvesting our fruits and vegetables in the field should be paid just as much as we pay the oil worker, etc., who's harvesting oil. Those who are harvesting our food should be paid comparatively. Would that raise the price of food? Yes, somewhat. But it also, a lot of that profit that goes into the coffers of the ADMs and all the big corporations should cease and more go to the people who make it happen. But anyway, beside the point, a Canadian woman got arrested by ICE. She was in the process of buying her ticket to go back to Canada. And what did they do? They threw her into jail anyway. And there is a reason for that. Because the immigration issue was never about immigration. The immigration issue was never about immigrants killing people, because Americans are much better killers than immigrants. Much better killers than immigrants. Both our military and our people. Much better killers than immigrants. But she gets it. I want you to listen to what she says close to the end of the interview on MSNBC. And I'm glad MSNBC took this story out of The Guardian, because a lot of folks hadn't seen it. I want you to listen to this.
Jasmine Mooney is a Canadian citizen who had a work visa, no criminal record, and had been traveling back and forth between Canada and California without any complications until she says she was suddenly detained without explanation at the San Diego border when she tried to reapply for a new visa. Writing in The Guardian, quote, "I was taken to a tiny freezing cement cell with bright fluorescent lights and a toilet. There were 5 other women lying on their mats with aluminum sheets sheets wrapped over them, looking like dead bodies. The guard locked the door behind me. For 2 days, we remained in that cell, only leaving briefly for food. The lights never turned off. We never knew what time it was, and no one answered our questions. No one in the cell spoke English, so I either tried to sleep or meditate to keep from having a mental breakdown. I didn't trust the food, so I fasted, assuming I wouldn't be there long. She added, I was told to shower, given a jail uniform, fingerprinted, and interviewed. I begged for information. How long will I be here? I don't know your case, the man said. Could be days, could be weeks. But I'm telling you right now, you need to mentally prepare yourself for months. Ultimately, Mooney says she spent 12 days in detention before she was finally allowed to book herself a flight back home to Canada. Joining us now, Jasmine Mooney. Explain what happened.
I mean, I'm still processing what happened. I got out and it really feels like a dream or a nightmare, but I still really don't know how I ended up there. But now I am really trying to use my voice to tell people what's going on, because I really don't think a lot of people know what's going on in there.
Why weren't you allowed to book yourself a flight back home?
I have no idea. I assume that if there were a denial with my visa, I would just book myself a flight and head back home. Apparently, because I had one denial before and then my other visa was voided. So for some reason, they said that they had to send me back to Canada. And I was literally booking my own flight to go home. And then that's when I was taken. And then I was in there for 12 days and not a single person talked to me the entire time that I was in there about my case.
Why do you think you were not given the opportunity? Do you feel like you were being used to send a message to others?
You know, I've been trying to come up with every explanation that I can. And I truly don't know. I was in there. I met around 200 other women who none of us had a criminal record. Everyone's story was different, a lot of the same. A lot of women I believe should not be in there. And what I found is the issue wasn't about getting deported. A lot of women admitted that they overstayed their visas. It's just what the issue that they have is the process of getting out of there. It is next to impossible. There is no communication. You do not have an officer to talk to. You can't contact your lawyers or your friends or your family. I was transferred twice in 2 weeks, which is an awful experience. There were girls in there who had been transferred 8 times in a couple weeks. So the whole system just felt super rigged to keep us in there. That's what it felt like.
Well, because you write, this is an interesting part of the article. You say companies like Core Civic and GEO Group receive government funding based on the number of people they detain, which is why they lobby for stricter immigration policies. It's a lucrative business. Core Civic made over $560 million from ICE contracts in a single year. In 2024, GEO Group made more than $763 million from ICE contracts. Do you believe that you were kept in there because you were a moneymaker?
Yes, I do. I believe that all the women in there are kept in there as long as possible, transferred around, because it's a business and they make money off of us. That's the only explanation that I could come up with, because I said from day one, I would pay for my ticket to go home. The amount of wasted resources that I witnessed in there, the inhumane conditions, they did everything they can to cut costs. I was given one plastic spoon and one styrofoam cup to last the stay. So when you start putting the pieces together, that is what I felt and came up with. So right now, I'm just trying to be a voice and bring light to this in hopes that someone who can make a change to the system cares and will listen and will sit down and see what's going on, because I want to believe that they don't. The administration doesn't know what's going on in there. Like I said, it is such a waste of resources. I met a girl in there that was there for 10 months. 10 months in those conditions. And I was there for 2 weeks. I'm Canadian. I have a Canadian passport. I had media, friends, family, lawyers, everyone using all of their resources to get me out. And it still took me 12 days. So can you possibly imagine what the other girls in there who don't have my resources, who don't have my privilege are going through?
I want you guys to think about what she said. Imagine those without her resources, those without her privilege has to go through. Like I said from the beginning, like I pointed out from the beginning, the only reason Donald Trump is picking up the immigration issue is one, to rile up a base, to create a false hate of people, those others, and with that gain a vote because you're basing that on people's carnality. But the most important reason he's doing this is for the grift. He intends to make a lot of money locking people up. And if you understand what she's saying there at the end, these companies are there to keep these places filled up. Because as they keep them filled up, they make more money per head. And to reduce costs, heard what she said as well. One plastic spoon, one styrofoam cup. And you better take care of that because that's all you get. Keep the costs low. Treat them like animals. Look, this is what they do. This is no different. Absolutely no different than the modus operandi that these pseudo-capitalists, well, not pseudo-capitalists, real capitalists have been doing for a long time. Folks, we have to wake up. There one mistake she made. She said she pointed out the story because she doesn't think the White House understands what's going on. That is where she's absolutely wrong. The White House knows exactly what's going on. It's been a grift from the beginning, and it will continue to be a grift. And when it is no longer feasible, when they've gotten all the money they can out of it, and when the farmers start paying bribes to Trump to give them exceptions to get those people into their farms, when the meat packers get to pay more bribes to Trump to get exceptions into going into their meat factories, their poultry factories, all these people are going to be there to get exceptions. So Donald Trump will be making money on all sides, and he's not going to get it directly. You know, he'll make some money from somebody. Somebody will then go buy the Trump coin and use some of the money that they profited from because of the grift from Trump and gets it into Trump coins. You have to understand Trump's methodology. Why the hell would Trump create a Trump coin? Why the hell will Trump create Truth Social? All of these are mechanisms to clean money. You can't give him direct money into his campaign, but you can buy DJI stock to keep a false company afloat. You can buy a Trump virtual coin, a Trump, what do you call it? A crypto coin. And by doing that, he gets rich without looking like he's doing anything wrong, which we do know, while he passed policies that goes ahead and just rip us all off. It's a grift. Understand it. It's a grift. It is one of the largest grifts out there. But you know, I think I'm wrong there when I said it's one of the largest grifts. Maybe because, you know, there are a lot of things that we do in this country that simply uses people, our citizens, our innocent citizens, as pawns to make money for the few. You know, all those private prisons that have popped up all over the country. Think about what that really means. That was there to do what again? That was there to make money for the people. So a lot of contracts with these private prisons, I understand, have clauses that says the prison has to be X percentage filled. And if X percentage isn't filled up, you got to pay for it as if it were filled up anyway. I want you to think about that. In other words, you have private prisons which must make a profit
to make a profit, they calculate that X amount of beds need to be in use all of the times. So therefore, the government has to pay for X amount of beds minimum. What do you think that means the government does? That means each municipality, etc., is going to try to keep those jails filled up. And how easy to keep those. And I'm not talking about the immigration detention centers now. I'm talking about jail for your son, for your daughter. So as they put away and who do they put away? They put away kids that they believe don't have the notion to fight. They lock them up and forget about them. Lock them up and forget about them. You remember that judge in Tennessee that was taking bribes for just locking up teenagers in a detention center? I mean, this is where the interface between bad government and the private sector, in other words, the oligarchy, go into alliance using you as pawns, using all of us as pawns. So when their jails are not filled enough, just stuff a few of those indigent folks, those people that, who cares about them? It's all a scam. And those are the things that we have to root out if we're going to maintain a democracy. This stuff about the immigration, it's going to cost you in many different ways. Think about it. As they profit from enslaving these people in these jails, not enslaving, locking them up in these jails. And as you have less workers to build your homes, the price of the homes go up, right? The material cost goes up because of tariffs, which Donald Trump used to fund parts of the government with the expectation that enough funds come in to give that huge tax break. So you pay more. You pay more for for your homes. It's a tax that you pay, not the rich guy pay, that you pay. Then you pay more for your fruits and vegetables because less people pick in these products. You have a manufactured scarcity. And even as they ship less product, the product price is higher. So their margins, guess what? Increase. The margin, their profit margins increase from the scarcity, and they make more money. And again, they cause a false increase in the price of oil, and absolutely everything goes up in price because we're still on an oil economy. When your goods are transferred to the stores, whether it's a stereo, whether it's your lettuce, all of that is transferred via either trains or trucks or whatever means of transportation, all powered mostly by fossil fuel. So that adds cost. So everything that they're doing right now is to add for you to pay more and from the wealthy guy to pay less. Joining us in the chat as well is the one and only my good friend Glenn Ryan, who he had coffee with Egberto. I enjoyed that very long conversation, Glenn. What is wrong with you, Eric? I know Eric has quite an interesting issue, folks. Quite an interesting issue. Oh, well, the phones are filled up and I didn't even realize. Let me go to somebody new first. Gabriel, come on in, Gabriel.
Sir, you there?
I'm here.
Hello. All right. All we're talking about here is just slave labor. Bringing in the immigrants are still slaves. And the woman that you had on, she sounded like a colonizer. We're all immigrants here anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, we're all immigrants. I'm glad you said that. Thank you for saying that. We're all immigrants.
So if we're all immigrants, then we're all in the same boat.
We should be.
We can't label each other and divide each other.
I agree. I agree with you. So I agree with you 100%.
We're all killers. And the same way the Spanish took the land from the Indians is the same way. The only people here that's supposed to be here are the blacks that were brought here because they didn't want to be brought here, and the Indians that were here before us. That's all I have to say.
Wow. Thank you, Gabriel, for that. Let's go to Tag.
Good morning, Egberto.
Good morning, my brother. Talk to me.
Well, I got a couple of things. We have one of those prisons here in Michigan, and I have just contracted with ICE to reopen this thing. So you can see that they're making spaces for people. And it's been closed, I think, maybe for 10 years, but they've opened it up and they're going to have people there pretty soon. You can see it coming. So there's no doubt that they're preparing to round people up. I wanted to say one thing about this signal thing with the Houthi bombing.
Yes, sir.
We can see Mike Waltz leaving real soon. Trump come out the other day and said, well, I'm sure that was because one of Mike Waltz's people put Goldberg on this thing. Waltz come right back and said, no, I put it on there. It's my fault. And, you just don't undercut the president like that. I can't see Waltz hanging around very long, and maybe some of these other people going also. So, it's a lot like during the 45 administration where these people started making mistakes and falling out of favor with Trump. And he's got a whole lot of them that, they got through Congress and they're going to be gone. So I'm pretty sure about that. One thing I want to say about Elon Musk buying these elections.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of these rich guys put a lot of money into elections and then lose their money because the people rose up and voted against their money. And I think that's what we're going to see. You started out kind of with that type of a rant this morning. And I agree. And I love seeing when these right wingers come in and spend all this money and then they don't get their people put into office. So I really look forward to that happening with Elon Musk. I mean, he can try to buy a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. With the way people are feeling right now, they're going to get out and make sure that doesn't happen. So we just need to rise up and get out there and vote, regardless of what it is. Just vote against them. Make sure their money doesn't buy these seats. So
that is what's important. And your rant is well taken. That is very important that we don't get that Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. I think right now there's a statistical tie on that race. I don't see why there should be a statistical tie, but I think Wisconsin is going to pull it out for us. Thank you so kindly, Tag. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy Michigan because you're going to help us out as well. Let's go to Brother Jimmy. Come on in, Jimmy. How you doing?
Solitary confinement in Texas prisons. A New York Times article titled 27 Years in Solitary and a Plea for Help focused on Dennis Hope, who spent 27 years in solitary and suffers from depression and paranoia. Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy said it drives men mad. Years on end in total isolation exacts a terrible price. Common side effects include anxiety, panic, withdrawal, hallucinations, self-mutilation, and suicidal thoughts and behaviors. In Texas now, in the legislature, we have Representative Terry Meza, who's sponsoring House Bill 1409, which will limit solitary confinement to 3 days unless there's some violence, and then it would go for 10 days. So we need to try to support that bill and get everybody to call their state rep and ask them to support House Bill 1409.
I am with you. I am with you, Jimmy.
Cruel and unusual, and it's a form of torture. Anyway, I hope everybody gets involved with this issue. It's going on right now in Texas. How would you like to be locked up in a cell by yourself for even 1 year, Egberto?
I would not like to be locked up in a cell for 1 year, and especially if you don't have a court case, or especially if you're there not for doing something wrong. So, look, I am with you. What's the bill number again, Jimmy?
It's House Bill 1409. And I would suggest that you call the Representative Terry Meza and talk to her and interview her and put it on your show. That would be good to find out what's going on with it and her reasons for introducing this bill. Representative
do me a favor.
Meza, M-E-Z-A.
Jimmy, I tell you what, send me an email at kfft@politicsdoneright.com, kfft@politicsdoneright.com with the info, and I'll try to do that, okay?
Good deal. I sent one yesterday with all this on it, but I'll send another one today.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you. I'm always in email hell, but I eventually get to everyone. Thank you so kindly, my friend.
Good deal. Bye-bye.
All right, let's go to Greg. Come on, Greg, line 6. Don't think I've heard that name before. Come on in, Greg.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, you've heard me before once or twice. I'm the teacher friend of yours, the more progressive individual than you are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Remember me now?
Of course Oh, Greg! Greg, you haven't called. I had coffee with you. Talk to me, brother. Talk to me.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about what you talked about earlier, and I want you to use the term class warfare.
I love that.
Because that's exactly what it is. It is class warfare. Privatizing these things so they can take the money from the government. The government takes our taxes and gives it to the rich. It's funneling money into the rich. Military-industrial complex has been doing that since the 50s, and privatizing prisons in the 80s and so forth, and then now detention centers is just funneling money up. Think about charter schools. Have you seen a KIPP or a Harmony? They have like no property. There's just a little parking lot around a 3-story building for Harmony, and then a little bit bigger parking lot around KIPP, which is usually a 1-story building. And then they get the same amount of money for each kid that goes there that a public school does. But they offer nothing to the public. All that money goes up to the rich. Because think about it. They got a smaller amount of property. They don't have any tracks, fields, basketball courts, and stuff like that for the community to use when the schools aren't using them. They don't have buses to take the kids to school and take them home. So they're not spending any money. They got cheaper uncertified teachers. Not that we're expensive, because we're pretty cheap too. They're spending no money. So where's all that money go? It goes up to the billionaire millionaire class. It funnels straight up. Their cost is almost nothing. It's class warfare.
And let me interrupt you 1 second, Glenn, because I want to point out something else. And their outcomes are no better and often worse, even as they get to cherry pick the kids that they get. Continue, my brother.
And they do cherry pick. And you're right. They do cherry pick. They don't take special needs, which are probably the more expensive, because you need more teachers per student for special needs. I'm not sure what it is, but in some cases, 1 teacher per 1 student, if it's a very significant need that student needs. So it's so much more expensive, and they won't take that. If a kid causes troubles, they kick them out. We don't kick them out. We put them in school suspension, and if that doesn't work, we move them to another building and try to work with them there. If that doesn't work, we even have another building. We can't kick a student out. We have to care for all students. So it's just like I was reading on Facebook some apologist gets on there and says, I've been teaching for 15 years before the Department of Education was created in the 1980s. And he goes, and it was better then than now. And it's like, well, that's not true, because the Department of Education, I remember going to the university, I think in the 90s, but in the 90s, and they were still putting in wheelchair ramps, making it accessible for all people and stuff. And this was in the 90s, and the Department of Education was in the 80s. And the reason that was created is because states weren't following the rules of law, making education available to all people, special needs, trying to overcome racism and sexism and so forth like that. And I tell my students to dual credit. I tell them, so some of you women here, if Trump gets his way, you won't be able to take these advanced classes. These advanced classes will only be for men.
There you go. It's funny, isn't it, Clay? I just want to tell you that, let you know that I've been calling it class warfare for a long time, and sometimes I don't use the word enough here. But I even wrote a book called As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort.
Awesome. Yes. Awesome. All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good because that's what it literally is. It literally is class warfare. And that's why they stream class warfare all the time.
Can you hear me now, my friend? Something happened.
Yeah. I couldn't hear you for a little bit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, something happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wrote a book a few years ago, As I See It. And guess what word I put in there? Class warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. There you go.
That's good. Yeah, and that's so true. It is so true. And then, of course, they always try to throw that word at us. Or at the, when there's a responsible tax that we're trying to put up, because we all pay taxes. And if you look at the proportion of taxes we pay, it's much greater than theirs. And it should be smaller than theirs because we have less expendable income.
Exactly.
And we need to we need to keep more of our expendable income so we can develop some wealth ourselves and our family. They have so much more expendable income, and they want to just to grow and grow and grow. But another comment I wanted to say is, if anybody now, I'm not going to say that we don't all need money to fulfill our needs and stuff like that. But if anyone thinks money in and of itself makes you happy, all you have to look at is Musk and Bezos and all of them. They have so much money and they keep trying to get more because they're miserable. It doesn't make them happy. I tell you what would make them happy. I'd love to be their psychologist. Is if they started paying their workers fair wages, if they created daycare centers in each of their buildings so that the workers they could drop their kids off in the daycare center in the same building, they could have lunch with them. If they gave their workers full health care, all that kind of stuff.
Greg, you're absolutely right. I got to go to the lines are completely filled. I got to go, but thank you, my brother, for your positive comment. I mistaken you with Glenn Ryan, so you're Greg, not Glenn Ryan. I had coffee with Egberto with Glenn Ryan. So Glenn, sorry for the mistaken identity. Thank you very much, Greg, for that commentary, my brother. We'll talk, okay?
Take care.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to Bruce. Come on in, Bruce. How you doing today, my dear brother?
I'm doing great. And get well, Jack. What I'm about to say is going to sound absurd until you realize it's what the right is doing in preaching. Okay, a spokesperson, when pressed about due process on TV, said, well, we're picking people up with that profile to prevent future crime. Well, I want to prevent future white-collar crime. Bernie Madoff wore expensive suits and ate in fancy restaurants. So ICE needs to stake out fancy restaurants looking for white guys in Armani suits. And when you pick them up, put them in chains, shave their head, and guess what? Guards have got nightsticks. They're going to be bent over anyway. I know how they could lead them to the plane with one hand.
Bruce, first of all, let me tell you, Bruce, wait, don't leave yet. That is ingenious, and it makes, I don't know why you thought we wouldn't understand it, but it makes a lot of sense. If you're going to no, it's not warp. Think about it. Anybody who wants to profile folks, right? If you want to profile a race, if you want to profile ethnicity, if you want to profile a gender, that is that's an excellent analogy, because if you look at the percentage of guys in an Armani suit going to an expensive restaurant and how many of them are crooks, that percentage is likely higher than the amount of any particular ethnicity that is profiled for a particular crime. Think about that, because inherent within the nature of our economic system is what Bernie Sanders calls design for fraud. If you look at how venture capitalists work, if you look at how those companies that buy up companies simply to put them in debt, those things are dubious at best. Your analogy is perfect, and your capture of crime would be larger by profiling guys in Armani suits eating at expensive restaurants than profiling those folks of a different ethnicity. Ingenious. I give you the thought of the day, Bruce. Thank you so kindly for that.
Yeah, I've got a warped mind. I can't help it.
That's not warped. I don't call that warped. Thank you. You have a good rest of your day. I want to salute Lisa Sherman in the chat, as well as who just got here. Glenn Ryan is in the chat as well. Who am I missing right now? If I miss you, forgive me. And let's go to Johnny. Come on in, Johnny.
Theoretical good. What day is this supposed to be? Wednesday?
Today is Wednesday. Yes, sir.
Theoretically, it's Wednesday, and it's theoretically early dawn. So the next elections, if they happen, the midterm elections, they're more than 17 or 19 months away from now. Mm-hmm. You know how much damage Republicans can do in 7 or 19 days.
Yes.
We've been here barely a month or so with Donald Trump in the outhouse. So with all due respect to TAG, giving people the impression that you just aim for showing up to vote, that's not going to cut it. That's not enough now. We are in the dead zone. We are literally very close to losing this country. So, yeah, you've got to be determined to show up and vote. You can't wait for 17 or 19 months for that. We've got to start taking to the streets right like yesterday. So what I did in that regard is I've been reaching out to every other day now. I've been calling, leaving voicemail messages with the various legislators in Washington when I compliment AOC and Bernie on their anti-oligarchic tour. And I suggested to them what I've been discussing with you for I don't know how long, about how we need to recruit Americans from across the country to be able to show up and literally back up any random senator or representative who wants access to a federal building with pre-planned discussions, tabletop planning with various sympathetic law enforcement, as well as military generals for when that time comes. And that time will come. Make no mistake about it. So they have to show up with their judicial warrants and sympathetic law enforcement in numbers, along with private citizens, to overwhelm those security guards or police or whoever who provide resistance to entry, legal entry of these representatives and these senators, and arrest them when they do, and then go into the building, find who's ever there conducting criminal activity, arrest them, search their homes, get the evidence you need to arrest them. That's the first step. That's the first step. And trust me, it's going to get ugly because Donald Trump has lots of morons who are volunteering for him. Not even just paid law enforcement. This weed has grown into a field of weeds. You talk about a field of dreams? No, we got a field of weeds here. And one last thing. When you aired that story of that woman, that unfortunate woman with the resources and the privilege, she was talking about her horror story of 12 days. What does that remind you of, Egberto?
Tell me.
Okay. The treatment that she described, what we have known about for so long, which is not new to you and me, because we've heard this over and over and over again about people in these privatized prisons. It's the same kind of treatment that these mullet heads give to kids in public schools, especially kids of color. They rip them out of their seat. They slam their head onto the floor. They treat them like animals. That was the concept you and her brought up earlier.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. No, you're absolutely right, Johnny. And let me just say that law
enforcement aspire to, and we have to dismiss them and recruit liberals into law enforcement.
Exactly. Greg alluded to that as well in his commentary. But thank you, Johnny. We're sort of running a little bit low now, so we'll talk later. Thank you so kindly for calling in. Okay.
Have a safe day. Stay safe.
You too, brother. Let's go to Peter. Come on in, Peter.
Hey, good morning, Egberto. And this is Peter, the Democratic candidate. I'm a Democratic candidate, former U.S. House nominee for District 2.
CD2. I remember you talked.
CD2. So my question for you, Egberto, is what's happening in Congressional District 18? Why is or what can we do to put pressure on Greg Abbott to call for a special election? And then follow-up question: what do you think of the candidates in CD18 who declared so far?
Okay, let me just tell you that I've already interviewed what's her name? Oh, I just slipped my mind. Amanda. I just interviewed Amanda Edwards. I was supposed to be interviewing Christian Menifee, but I haven't heard back from him after we had set a particular date, so we don't quite know. A couple of others have contacted me. I'm not at liberty to give a name of a couple that are planning on throwing themselves into the race. I also hear that Jolanda is thinking about running as well. She's put out some feelers out there. So I think you're going to have a lot of people ready to run. And after we get all those different people running, I'll be able to give you a more intelligent answer. Right now, I don't have one for you, but I'll be able to give a more intelligent answer thereafter. Now, as far as that district is concerned, that's district. Whoever takes it over, one of the questions I'm going to be asking is, what do you intend to do to ensure that those people are more active in our body politic? Because it's not enough to just have this district where only 17% of the people vote, because that doesn't represent most of the people. So that will be one of the things I will be putting out there. Anyway, what else there? What else, Peter?
Well, yeah, that's very low voter turnout. But specifically, I know Greg Abbott. Well, what I know is Greg Abbott has until this Friday. So 48
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My bad. I didn't answer that question. If we want I think what Greg Abbott is going to do is wait to see the results in Florida and New York to see if he needs to hold out. Because if Democrats take Florida and New York, they take Congress, but then by Sylvester dying, rest in peace, my dear brother. What that means is that they could mitigate, one of those losses or two of those losses would be a squash if we don't have the Texas candidate in there. So I think that's what's going to happen. But Peter, I'm running out of time, so I got to go to Bart and then Brian. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you.
Hope for the best. I'll follow up. All right. Have a good day.
Thank you, brother. Let's go to Bart. Come on in, Bart.
Good morning, Johnny and Gabriel. I will offer to buy you a one-way ticket out of my pocket to anywhere you want to go. All you have to do is surrender your passport and any of your citizenship documentation and promise never to come back. So it'll be a one-way only, and you can go out, live happily wherever you want to go. Now, if you don't want to do the time, then don't do the crime. So all these crybabies about prison and solitary confinement, don't be criminals.
You know what, Brad? I mean, Bart, you've proven to be you have proven to lack.
I'm going to say that name on the air. Right. I guarantee you won't.
Okay,
you will not
stop.
Say her name.
All right, now, Bart. I understand that critical thinking is not one of your major attributes. But the truth of the matter is there are a whole lot of people out there that simply don't belong in prisons. A lot of the people who belong in prisons are the people you support. So you have lost all credibility to determine anything about criminality. So thank you so kindly for calling. Let's go to Brian. Line number 2. Come on in, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. What is your definition of terrorism?
Whenever you try to change, there are two kinds of terrorism: domestic and international. International terrorism is whenever you try to change the country or government or whatever by violent means. That's the purpose of doing it. You want to change what the laws are. That's terrorism. So go ahead.
Okay. Wait a minute. Did you just say by valid means?
No, I didn't. No. I didn't say. I said by violent means.
Okay, by valid means. So
violent.
Okay. Well, yeah, it didn't sound like that to me. So planting 7 incendiary bombs in a Tesla dealership, is that vandalism or terrorism?
That's vandalism.
No, sir. That is terrorism.
Okay, that's your again. That is your the choice that these guys made were caused by vandalism. It would be terrorism if they were attempting to bring down the United States, etc., by doing that act. That's not what they're trying to do at all.
Okay, you're wrong on that, but I have another point to bring up.
Sure, go ahead.
Why do you keep promoting Sylvester? Yeah, why do you keep promoting Sylvester Turner when the people of Houston voted to increase the pay of the firefighters, and he went opposite of the will of the people, and he did not increase their pay?
First of all, I agree. Okay, again, we don't have much time, so let me. Hey, I don't have much time to answer that, but let me just say, first of all, I am with you that if the people voted to pay the firefighter, Sylvester Turner's duty should have been to get that contract done and increase the pay of the firefighters. I agree with that. But there's a second part to that story as well. He should have had the pelotas enough to say, and if you want to pay the firefighters this is how much taxes have to be increased to pay them. So you're right. The thing about it is people a lot of times, especially in places like Texas, vote in manners that, they don't quite understand. If you wanted those firefighters paid, I was willing to pay more taxes to pay those firefighters. But you got to be honest with the people. You want more firefighter pay, it also comes with a tax increase, and that is what it should be. Anything else?
And no, I don't believe in Bernie Sanders simply because he combs his hair with a magnet. That's the most in-depth person I've ever seen.
All right. Have a great day, Brian. I got to go. let me transfer it to the studio. Go ahead, studio.
Oh, seriously? Come on, man.
That one is crazy. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. So by Brian's own definition, January 6th was an act of domestic terrorism.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. So by your own definition, Brian, January 6th was an act of domestic terrorism. So we all know what happened on January 6th. So there you have it. And that's all I got.
But the important thing is when he tries to equate what the vandalism that is occurring onto Tesla, there are no laws that DOGE has the opportunity that those can change. Okay, DOGE is not an agency, it's not a government. I mean, it's not. So they don't like exactly. So it's not terrorism. To put it bluntly, I would call it defending our country. I wouldn't do it, but I will call it defending our country. Anyway, folks, love you all. Anybody wants to get the rest of the show, it's at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. If you want to reach me directly, please send an email to kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. Billy, Allison, Irwin, thank you for being here. I didn't give you a shout out before. Anyway, folks, my name is Egberto Willies. Love you all. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out.
Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies.